The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to the Lord.
When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he had sat down, his disciples came to him. He began to teach them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the clean of heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when they insult you and persecute you and utter every kind of evil against you falsely because of me. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward will be great in heaven." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
The last of these Beatitudes always bothers me a little bit, and it makes sense, it probably should, where he says, "Blessed are you when they insult you and persecute you." I don't want that. That doesn't sound very blessed at all. But it's also, if you kind of flip it around, it's an opportunity to examine my life, my conscience, and I invite you to do the same. Have I experienced insults and persecution and uttering evil against me falsely, lies, slanders, because of what I believe and how I follow Christ? If I'm not, if I'm very comfortable with the world around us, with all the pagan and non-Christian and anti-Christian and just all sorts of craziness in the world, if I'm comfortable there and I'm never ridiculed for my faith, am I actually living my faith at all? This is my thought, because we know and we should understand that practicing our faith has some consequences. One is heaven and everlasting joy. A more short-term consequence is occasional insults and persecution. Are we comfortable with the Spirit of the Lord working in us, or have we gotten too comfortable with the spirit of the world? One of the things that I see that's so important, and it comes up in our readings, but really just living the Christian life, is humility. We're called to be humble, recognizing that we are sinners and having, in a sense, the courage and humility to acknowledge that at times before others, but most importantly before God. Because I fear there are many people who are very powerful and seem to be successful in all the important ways the world says they're successful, but don't seem to have much humility. I don't know if they are able right now to stand before God and say, "I'm a failure in so many ways. I've sinned in so many ways. I need your mercy. I need your help." This idea of humility called to mind one story in particular that I'll share with you, and then that story called to mind two others that are partially connected, and if nothing else, I think they're beautiful stories, so I'm going to share them with you. The first is a couple that I got to know up in the mountains at one of my parishes, and a little bit younger, they're younger than me, and the way that I think about it for the man, he will never be a lector. He does not read well at all. He actually reads very poorly. He never graduated high school. I'm guessing it was a mix, partly because things didn't connect and he didn't do well in school, and he probably also doesn't read well because he dropped out and probably wasn't doing well in school in a different way. But out of humility, he's actually used that and turned it into a really beautiful and powerful grace for his marriage. And I'm just struck by it. I would warmly recommend any couple doing something like this. So he reads poorly. I don't know what level, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's kind of at a fourth grade reading level. And so he reads the Bible and he's like, I don't understand what any of this is. his wife does well. So most nights before they go to bed, she would read out loud a passage from the Bible, and he would listen. And then they would discuss it a little bit, and both of them independently have told me that, yeah, we probably understand half of what we read, but we try. Which is perfect. That there's nothing more, as their pastor, I was thrilled. And they discuss it, and then they go to bed. It's a beautiful way to end a day. Absolutely amazing. And I see it, their marriage, not perfect, no one's marriage perfect, but there's some really beautiful things in their marriage. And in large part it came about because this husband had the humility to say to his wife, honey, I'm bad at this. Would you help me? Can I lean on you in this area because I cannot do it myself? And she had the humility and grace to respond and say, yes, I'm happy to do this. I will take some of this load. I'll read out loud each night. Thinking about this also called to mind another story, and it required some humility and perseverance in the face of great difficulty. The same couple, they got together when they were in high school. I don't remember exactly what ages and grades and all that, but she got pregnant in high school. Not good. And lots of the chaos that came after all of that, and I could only begin to understand. It was a small town. She's in high school. Everybody knew. And it was tough for multiple reasons, not just for that, but there were people in her life that were saying, like, you know what, you're too young for this. You just need to get an abortion. Just take care of the problem and get on with your life. Don't let this be a burden to you. Including the school counselor. He would slip pamphlets about abortion into her school locker for her to read on her own. She decided not to. She had whatever it was, the grace of God. She recognized, no, that there's a life in her that belongs to her. This is her child entrusted to her, and she carried him to term. For a while, she was at a different high school, had to drive a long ways to go there, and I could only imagine just all of stuff, and the shame and the embarrassment, and just the difficulty of being pregnant, and all of this. Now, this one was unusual. So often, it actually shows one of the reasons why the church and God have always said, no, sexual relations belong only in marriage, period. That's the only place. Partly, we see it here, because a child deserves to enter the world in a stable home with his mother and father who love each other and are pledged to each other forever. That's where a child deserves to come. Out of justice for that child, that's where he belongs. Many times things don't happen that way. It's no fault on the child, but this is one of the reasons, and we see it. Now, this was unusual in that the man, he stayed with her, and eventually they got married, and they're the ones that do have a beautiful marriage. It doesn't usually work out that way, but in this case it did. Their son has now graduated high school a few years back, and I have to say in this church, everyone knew him, and everyone had sort of the same response. That's an awesome kid. Now he's a little bit older. That's an awesome young man. Any one of you would be thrilled to have a son like his. Any of you who are parents of daughters would be thrilled if your daughter married him or a young man like him. The world could have been very different had this young lady, a teenager, listened to the world. Instead, she took on lots of insults and persecution and gossip and scandal and shame and all of that, in large part out of love for this child that she has been entrusted to. And this story reminded me of a third story, and this is my last one for this. A few weeks back, I mentioned Grandma Pat. She was the woman who had just a crazy, huge family, crazy family tree that I still don't understand. And she rented out rooms in her house after the last of the kids moved out, and that's how I got to meet her. I rented a room in her house for a couple years, and it was beautiful. It was such a grace for me to be able to get to know her and her family. after I went off to seminary, I would still go and visit pretty regularly. And one time when I was coming in, a man came out and he introduced himself. He said something like, "Hey, I'm Joe. I'm Pat's son." "Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Peter. Yeah, I used to live here." I was pretty sure I met all of her sons. I mean, her family's really big, so the kind of big family where you go, "Oh, okay, another son. Great to meet you." Well, it ends up that he was an unknown son for most of the family up until a week or two before that. See, when she was much younger, many years before, she was married. Her husband was in the army, and so they were in base housing, and I think he was out on deployment or something. And a friend of his came by and raped her. I could only imagine the turmoil and turning the whole world upside down and everything that comes along with that. And then she got pregnant. That's not an ideal way, obviously. And as she was wrestling with this, she felt very strongly that her husband would not be able to accept this child as his own. And it would be unfair for this child to be in this place. So she carried him to term with all of everything that was and the reminders of everything that happened. And she offered this child up for adoption. In a sense, she entrusted this child to Jesus, his mother, and said, "Okay, find some good parents for my child. I'm not able in this situation to take care of him." I can't imagine all of that either, but she did it. Now, her immediate children, all 8 of them or whatever it was, she told them, "You have a brother out there someplace." But no one else in the family knew. And then a few years back, she got a phone call out of the blue from a man, and he said, "Hi, is this Patricia whatever?" Patricia, Grandma Pat outlived 3 husbands, and so I don't remember which last name was at that time, but it was that one. "Oh, that's odd. She hasn't heard that one for a while, but yes, this is her." And he said, "Well, does, I don't know, May 13th, 1957 mean anything to you?" His birthday. And she was sharp. So immediately, "Does 7 pounds, 3 ounces mean anything to you?" Tears started flowing from both of them. That would have been wonderful. It's spontaneous. It wasn't recorded, but that's a phone call you wish was recorded. Can you imagine how beautiful that was? Oh, for both of them. And long conversation, of course, and a few weeks later, he flew out to see his family for the first time. And it was just Grandma Pat and her children. They arranged it so that they would be there. And one of them recorded this meeting, and I need to find this recording. So the man drove up the driveway, got out, was starting to walk up the path to the front door, and Grandma Pat walked out there with her cane, walking out there, got real close, and when she got close to him, she threw away the cane and jumped into his arms, squeals of laughter and joy and crying and everything. She didn't need a cane, she's just a little bit dramatic. So she just wanted to have a beautiful, momentous time. And it was awesome and just good. And he remarked on this, the family remarked on this, that the family had already been prepped, her children. "Yep, you have a brother." And they, in a sense, had already been preparing to love him before they ever met him. So that immediately he felt like he was completely part of the family. Like it was nothing. And sharing stories. I'm like, "Hey, brother, it's been a while since we've talked. Tell me about what you've done in the last 65 years. But it was wonderful and good. Those sort of stories don't always end up quite that way, but many times they do. And they're worth sharing. Because we know there's plenty of bad stories in the world, but so we need to remember the good ones. And those 3 stories that I shared, they required some humility on the part of the people there. Of saying, this is not what I planned. There's lots of difficulties and suffering and embarrassment and whatever that's coming along with it. But I'm still going to do what I believe is right. I'm going to choose good rather than choosing evil or running from all of it. I think also of countless times that I've gotten glimpses of some of these stories that are still unfolding. talking with just normal people, and especially hearing some stories in confession where people have the humility to come before God in the sacrament of reconciliation and say something that's very difficult. Basically, I have sinned in some really horrible ways. I've done that. I can't blame anyone else. I have done that. I have been the thief. I've been the liar. I've been the adulterer. I've been the one given into anger or laziness or lust or any of these things. Me. That was me. Because it's that humility that allows God to enter in and work. The grace, the miracles that come from healing and forgiveness require the sort of the first step is our humility. To come before God and say, yeah, I'm not nearly as holy as I would like to think I am. And I'm definitely not as holy as other people may think I am. I need your help, Lord. And when we do that, God can work. And there are beautiful stories. And I'm always myself humbled at the privilege I have of being part of that reconciliation. That a person that looks completely normal says, no, I've done this. And big things, small things, but they're not who they know they're called to be. The key step in our Christian life, the absolutely essential thing that we need is our humility, recognizing that we don't have it all together. The world may look at us as successful, or they may look at us as complete failures, but out of humility, we need to come before God and accept Him, and accept how He sees us. Not how the world sees us, and even not how we see ourselves, but come with the humility to see ourselves as a sinner loved and forgiven by God. That's our call. Praise God for this call.